Welcome to Connecting the Dots video series. My name is Ron King. This is video 1 of 2, where I discuss the book, The Psychology of Money, Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed, and Happiness by Morgan Housel. The agenda has 2 parts. In the setup part, I discuss the approach and the goals for this book as it relates to the Connecting the Dots series. And second part of the setup is I give a quick overview of the book, but I should mention at the onset that I'm going to be constructive. I assume the author is in the room as I discuss it. For Connecting the Dots, I present the table of contents, which is our roadmap. And based on the major concepts in the chapters, I build a framework. That's a visual connection of these concepts. And then for each topic in a chapter, I position it in the framework, try to integrate it, expand upon it, and on occasion, stress test the idea. So the approach for this Connect the Dots video series is to provide a framework where I define the terms and then create a visual that connects the major themes. The Connecting the Dots part is where I take topics of interest in the chapters and discuss them in relation to the framework that we've created in part 1. Of course, my choices are idiosyncratic in that I pick topics, pick concepts each chapter, but I think these concepts are fundamental to the central themes that the author uses. In some cases, I extend beyond the book, bringing new ideas to supplement and maybe embellish the topics raised by the author. So what we try to do in this Connect the Dots series is provide a framework and connecting the dots combo so that we create a mental scaffold so we understand, remember, and know how to use the ideas. Quick overview of the book. The 2 primary variables that the author wants us to think about are saving money and investing. And the advice he gives on saving money is live within your means. It's a very common sense approach, but he tries to provide insights into how we might do it and the rationale behind it. And invest early basically makes the argument, keep it simple, get wealthy slowly. The book is called The Psychology of Money. I actually think the philosophy of your financial life might be a better title in that he provides wisdom or recommendations rather than on psychology or issues with brain dynamics that lead us to where we're at. But again, I think the title works, but it's really a philosophy. And it's in the spirit of the book by Benjamin Graham, The Intelligent Investor, which is a book that he indicates in his writings that's been very influential to him. The target market, he clearly writes for the mass market. His North Star, the thing that seems to guide him, is that he wants his concepts to be understandable, and he writes in a way that he embeds his concept in stories. So you really engage, you really feel connected. The author seems to have a very authentic vibe. He provides insights into his thinking and his personal financial decisions. So I think from the point of view of a reader, you really feel connected to the author. I looked at the 2020 edition, which is 242 pages, and it's got 20 chapters. And in this video, I'm going to go through the first video where I'll go through the first 10 chapters. And in the second video, I'll go through the second 10 chapters. And prior to that, I'll create a framework where I try to knit all these concepts, the major concepts, into a somewhat unifying framework that connects the dots for these ideas. So if we start, we've got a timeline where time is on the horizontal, events, perceptions, and actions are on the vertical. And we think about time as 3 elements. The present is the here and now, where we have to make decisions related to savings and investing. And our decisions are going to be based on what he calls, or what I call a worldview, but he calls experience. But the worldview, as I use it, is all the pressures, the experiences, the surroundings that bring us up to where we are in the here and now. In addition to the worldview, we have a model of the future. How do we think the world works? And of course, these concepts, the worldview and the models of the future, are related And in combination, they create expectations. So the decision variables are savings and investing. What drives this in part is our worldview and our models of the future that's now conditioned our expectations. And to help pull these ideas together, I'm going to introduce an income statement and balance sheet. Again, just to cement the ideas. He doesn't talk about any of these concepts, the worldview, model of the future. Of course, he refers to the spirit of those. But I think we can make salient some of his ideas by using this income statement and balance sheet. So an income statement is a statement that tells us inflows and outflows over a period of time. We can see this simple example here where the income, which would be wages and dividends and interest, any sort of inflows. My example here is $96,000. You have basic expenses, then you have income after basic expenses. And just in this little example, we have $24,000. What the author is going to focus on are discretionary expenses and what I call free cash flow, which he might refer to as investable savings. So this is going to be his focus. This relates to savings. And in terms of investing, investing is a balance sheet concept where this tells us our assets. In my little example here, I've got total assets of $475,000, which is made up of cash, investments, cars, and a house. And our liabilities, which are credit cards, car loan, and mortgage. Of course, a simple little example here where net worth is $140,000. And the intuition behind that $140,000 is that's the excess of our assets over our liabilities. So this, in some sense, tells us what we're worth. In corporate terms, this would be our shareholders' equity or our partners' equity. So again, we see the top here, and that's what he's going to focus on, not the liabilities, but on the makeup of our assets. So his basic financial life philosophy is save and invest, and he's going to walk us through how he recommends. And this is, he says, leading us to happiness. And you can see in the book, timeless lessons on wealth, greed, and happiness. So the fundamental goal here is happiness, and saving and investing is a means to that end. So let's start with the chapters. Chapter 1, he calls No One is Crazy. And in this chapter, he deals with the worldview and what's happened in the past. And what he says is that we all have a set of perceptions and events that lead us to today, but they can be different. So here's an example where, both of them would have some variance, ups and downs. But in the case here, it could be someone who's coming off a stream of bad luck. Here's someone who's doing well and better. And he said that you can't tell if someone is doing crazy stuff because we don't know what they've gone through. We aren't able to step into the shoes. So he says, no one is crazy. We all make decisions based on our own unique experiences that seem to make sense to us in that given moment. And this is a quote I've taken on page 22. So he starts with basically being a very forgiving mentality. He says, I'm not going to judge how you decided in the past or what you're going to do. You're not crazy because you may have a lot of unique life experiences that I'm not able to understand or maybe sympathize with. Chapter 2 is luck and risk, an interesting chapter here. And again, the luck and risk is the past connecting with our decisions today, which make up our worldview and our models. And I'm going to discuss this chapter using this simple matrix where we have decisions down here, and you can make a good decision or a bad decision. And of course, there could be a continuum, and outcomes could be good or bad. And again, continuums. But the way the world works is we can't distinguish when we make a decision after the fact if it was good or bad. So if we get a good outcome, it could be because we matched, we made a good decision and had a good outcome, or we were lucky that we made a bad decision, but we were lucky and it turned out to be good. Likewise, we could have a bad outcome, and it could be that we made a good decision, but the world isn't perfectly deterministic, so it was a risk. There is a risk that even though we made a good decision, we still might have a bad outcome. And in the matches, we made a bad decision and we got the just treatment for that. And what he's characterizing here is that people have different kinds of luck. And he tells a story about Bill Gates, Paul Allen, and Kent Evans. And these were three kids in high school that really shared an interest in computers. And he tells a nice story about how these three participated in a very unique experiment with developing computers because of funding the school had for getting computer very early on. And of course, we know the story. Bill Gates and Paul Allen became fabulously wealthy by building Microsoft. Turns out that Kent Evans was a friend, and Bill Gates, after the fact, said Kent might have been the most gifted, the most visionary of the three, but Kent at a young age got killed in a mountaineering accident. So this is a risk. The author would say, you know, good decisions, great capabilities, but he was just unlucky. And because of that, he said, nothing should be perceived to be as good or as bad as it seems. And so if you get good outcomes all the time, you have to keep in mind that it could be you're just lucky and that you shouldn't assume that you're bulletproof. And just if you get bad outcomes, you shouldn't assume that you made bad decisions, but that the world has risk. So don't overreact to the outcomes because we don't know this transformation process of good or bad decisions into the outcomes. I think it's a very interesting chapter, one of those that I think you'll enjoy reading. Chapter 3, Never Enough. This is a fairly well-known concept, but basically relates to decisions related to savings and investing. And the problem he sees is a moving goalpost. And he says the hardest skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. That is, we get some money and it may make us happy for a while, but then we want more. And he said the social comparison is maybe the driver for this problem. So we get a car, it's good for a while, but then we want more. And we are chasing these goalposts, that it's never enough. And Donella Meadows is a quote that I really like. It's not quoted by the author in this book, but I think this really kind of reinforces what the author says in this book. People don't need enormous cars. They need admiration and respect. They don't need a constant stream of new clothes. They need to feel that others consider them attractive. And they need excitement and variety and beauty. People don't need electronic entertainment. They need something interesting to occupy their minds and emotion. And I think this really is consistent with the spirit of his chapter. So let's look at chapter 4, Confounding Compounding. The title is a little bit hard to understand here, but basically he talks about compounding interest and the power of that phenomenon. And a quote I take from page 53 here is, good investing is about earning pretty good returns that you can stick with and which can be repeated for the longest period. Now, I'd like to present something I took from the Federal Reserve Bank here in St. Louis, comparing two investors and seeing how their wealth grows over time. So investor one starts when she's 25 years old, and she sets aside in savings $5,000 a year for 10 years, and she's going to earn an 8% return. So she's going to invest $50,000 over 10 years, and then she's not going to invest anymore. And this blue line represents the compounded earnings that this investment grows to. And you can see it's $787,000 and change. And this exhibit contrasts investor one's end result or portfolio at the end with investor two, who waits 10 years and now starts investing at $5,000, but has to invest for 30 years. So a total of $150,000, and that portfolio grows to $610,000 and change. So the point here is that by starting early and have your money work for you, because it's at the end where the money really starts aggregating, again, assume there's a constant 8% growth, that early investing that has the ability to compound over time, that's the power of amassing wealth. Chapter 5 is getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. And this is a real important concept, and he gives many examples in the chapters about people who are rich and then lost it, made bad decisions, and end up back worse off than they started. So a quote I take from page 59, if I had to summarize money issues in a single word, it would be survival. And here is the story behind that. We already talked about this matrix where you make a decision and then you have an outcome. But if you think that you are making good decisions because you have good outcomes, you may over characterize your capabilities. And as you bet bigger and bigger, it's possible that your luck carries you for a certain distance, but then when you run out of luck, you could end up making very bad decisions and losing everything. And thus you lose the ability to survive because you don't have money to be in the game. Tails you win. It's an interesting chapter. This is a phenomenon related to the returns of markets, particularly equity markets. And he said the Russell 3000 has increased more than 73-fold since 1980. But even though it increased 73-fold, 40% of the companies are effective failures. But the 7% that performed extremely well offset the duds. And this can be shown in this distribution. Stock returns follow a log normal distribution roughly. And you can see on here, it's the multiple times your investment. And here's the percentage. So under the curve here represents the percentage of companies, and this aggregate amount would be 100%. And what he says here is that the big winners, the ones that are very, very infrequent, but they're earning 100, 150, 200 times their original investment. And these offset all these duds over here. And the point here is if you just picked a few companies and didn't invest broadly in the market, you are more likely, because there's 93% of the companies are over here, that you would end up here over-indexed in duds, and you'd be potentially missing these winners that really make the returns that are possible. So the suggestion is buy the entire market, invest in indexes. Freedom. This is a concept that I think he feels strongly about it, not necessarily tied to investing or savings, but it's how you can use your money to buy well-being. And he basically talks about the trade-offs between money and time. And he says, control over doing what you want, when you want to, with people you want to. That is a variable that makes people happy. And again, his goal here is to help us think about happiness. Man in the car paradox, it's a set of facts he talks about. He said as a youth, he was a valet at a fancy hotel. And he makes this statement, when you see someone driving a nice car, you rarely think, wow, the guy driving that car is cool. Instead, you think, wow, if I had that car, people would think I'm cool. Now, again, you can see the contradiction here. This is an inconsistency, but people do think that way, that I want a fancy car to signal that I deserve respect or that I've made it financially. And he makes the argument that many times these impressions don't land well. And you should think about that when you think about your savings and investing. Wealth is what you don't see. This is kind of an interesting story. Let's look at our balance sheet. Remember, we said that we can have cars and house. And he said these things reflect how rich you are because people can see them. You have your fancy car that you drive to work or to the club. You have a house in a fancy neighborhood with cool neighbors. So that is to look rich, but to be wealthy, which he contrasted, you can't see. So wealth is what you don't see because the cash you have in the bank, the investments you have at Charles Schwab, these aren't observable, but they're really what can buy you the freedom, buy you the well-being that you would like. So he said, don't buy houses and cars to look rich, rather buy things that make you wealthy. Now, I should point out that Warren Buffett, who's someone he respects a lot, says you should very much invest in houses, not fancy unnecessarily expensive house. But house is a good investment from Warren Buffett's point of view. And the other thing that the author doesn't say, and this is a jagged edge that I have about your book, and it may be that the author will follow up with another book, is he doesn't talk about investing in your own education, make an investment in human capital. You don't see that on a balance sheet, but certainly something that I'd strongly recommend when you think about whether you invest in a house or cars or investment, also think about investing in yourself. Chapter 10, save money. And basically, it's a simple idea here. The first idea, simple but easy to overlook, is that building wealth has little to do with how much money you make and lots to do with your savings rate. Now, you might quibble that it certainly makes it more difficult if your income is low to save, but his basic argument is there are many people who don't make a lot of money who are able to save because they make it a priority. Again, his idea is to have the discipline not to have a lot of discretionary expenses, so you have this free cash flow to invest. So what we've done is we've gone through the first 10 chapters here of the book, and this is the end of video 1. In video 2, we'll pick up in these next 10 chapters. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you on the next video.